Collect the money. You know. Man, are you cold?
Are you?
Are we live?
Mine are rolled up. What's up, everybody? Welcome into the DNVR Nuggets Podcast.
Let's go.
Presented by DraftKings Sportsbook, America's top-rated sportsbook app. Use promo code DNVR whenever you sign up. We got a good show for you today, guys. We took yesterday off. You know, it was a slog getting through the first round. You got all this stuff.
A reset.
A little reset. And also, you know, you get home at 2 in the morning. You got to do a show 2 in the afternoon. Is there really that much of a hangover take? Is there much more? I don't know.
It's still a drunk take.
It's still a drunk take.
At that
Exactly.
point.
You're not even hungover yet. But
Hey, Nuggets,
in the last 36 hours, able to watch a little film, go through all the stats. I am hyped to get this thing started.
Let's
to me,
go.
today
Air horns.
feels like the beginning of the hype for what is the biggest series of the Jokic era starting up on Saturday. Help me get ready for it. Look at this man over here, dressing like himself. It's Brendan Vogt.
Yeah, you got just how you feel. And I feel like whatever this is. I think it's good, though.
I think it's good.
I think it's good.
We think it's good, man.
What did Pat Graham say to you today about the outfit?
He said, I'm not sure if my eyes hurt.
Pat Graham of the AP,
I was just
or
gonna
I
say,
really
like
distinguished
this.
journalist.
I was just going to say, Brendan dressed like an eye test today.
Yeah, that's probably the meanest thing Patrick's ever said, too.
Yeah, he's like the nicest guy, but just let that one.
Trying to
rip
make
today.
it did feel a little bit like your uncle trying to make conversation, but it's actually just insulting.
Yeah.
Anyway, over here I've got D-Line.
That's right. Apparently, I'm cold. I have my
Long sleeve shirt on.
sleeves are down. This is too much for
Yeah,
Adam.
look at my sleeves.
I mean,
I'm not hot.
I mean, you look like a burned out newspaper guy, but
A burned out newspaper guy?
Wow.
yeah, like things have been not like you've been on the beat maybe a little too long. And things aren't going well at home. We've resulted in a little spate of alcoholism. but
Great
anyway,
personal
I'm
style
very
as voted on by the women of Ball Arena. Over here, I've got Harrison Wind.
What'd you say?
I told you this. I was told I had great personal style by a coalition of Katie Wingy, Kendra Andrews, Jenna Garcia. Shouts to all of them.
Well,
Great personal
I
style.
Question their
just
opinions
saying.
on style. Now.
Just saying, if you want style advice, you came to the right
Wow.
place.
He's wearing white athletic socks. Anyway,
Harrison Wind.
I like to call my style,
Neutral?
yeah,
Ankle-
neutral, athletic.
We actually, Harrison, I kind of want to start today's show by asking you, because you haven't been on the show for like a week.
Yeah.
Just kind of putting a quick bow on, do you have any final thoughts from being in Minnesota and just kind of how this whole previous, I don't even want to care about the series per se, more about the Nuggets playoffs, how they kind of close that series out?
Well, I think you just got to give them credit for taking care of business, especially after the number 1 seeded Milwaukee Bucks lost to the 8 seeded Miami Heat last night. And the Nuggets, the number 1 seed out west, took care of their matchup in 5 games. Like, of course, Timberwolves, Heat, different teams, different context, of course. But in the end, I feel like the Nuggets did take care of business. I picked them to win in 5 games. They won in 5 games. Like, they met their expectations in the series. It wasn't the prettiest performance, I don't think, but all in all, I think you should have a lot of confidence going forward in the Nuggets, just because they did just do the job. They completed the job, and you didn't really have to panic that much on the way there.
I mean, I do feel like this was a workmanlike. It might be the first ever workmanlike series.
Well, it's
in
the first
Jokic
ever
era.
series that they've won in less than 6 games.
But I mean, even the only other one you could maybe compare this to would be the Portland one that they won in 6. But I don't even feel like that one was workmanlike. I do think there's a chance, if you recall that series, the Nuggets ended up getting a protest inside of their hotel room that
And got
lasted till
blown
like
out.
4 in the morning and then got blown out that
Classic
game.
Portland.
So there is like a little sense to me of maybe they would have won that one in 5. I don't know. You can't really play that game. But nonetheless, that series felt a little bit more chaotic of just like you needed some
you
crazy.
had like Damian Lillard's 55 points. Like that was a way more back and forth this series. This series, the Nuggets felt in control.
Yeah, exactly.
From game 1 through game 5. Like they lost game 4, of course, but they felt in control the whole way.
I agree.
Another thing about this Nuggets team is different, and we're not around these guys all the time. You get locker room access after games. You get to be in practice, this or that. Nonetheless, man, I really do feel like you gain a lot of insight into just the overall mood of the team, confidence of the team, and all of those different things when you're around them. And I got to say, they have been relaxed this whole playoffs. Today felt like an all-timer. An all-timer in terms of just energy and You know what I mean? It didn't feel like, oh my God, we have a big challenge ahead of us. It just felt like, hell yeah, man, I can't wait for this. I mean, am I reading into it?
No, I agree. Maybe eagerness, but
Yes.
excitement and also just good energy. They love that little shooting drill contest at the end. And I think that's important to see because they mentioned last time out after the play-in games how that week got a little long and how their focus was tested. And everyone knows a tense, important series is coming up. You got to stay dialed in. I actually like seeing them smiling and laughing too right now because I think there's a balance. There's a balance of we want this to get going, but like it's fun to be with the fellas. It's fun to be at work, and we can't wait for game one.
Another thing I saw that stood out to me, Wind, Jokic drenched in sweat.
I tweeted that. Yeah, that was crazy. So it must have been a tough practice, or at least he was going hard. That was interesting. I thought the overall vibe, I would agree. Like they were having fun today. They were loose. They were excited. I got the same vibes today that I got in the practices leading up to the start of the Minnesota series.
Right.
And I think this is one of Mike Malone's underrated traits. But in the playoffs especially, I feel like he knows when to dial it up and dial it back. And I feel like right now he knows this team and he knows he's got to keep it loose.
Right.
And then it will be maybe a little more intense practice tomorrow. And then Saturday, at shoot around, he dials it all the way up and everybody locks in. So I feel like he's just got a real pulse on this team, and it seems like they're just running back the playbook from the Minnesota series.
But at the same time, Eric, like I almost feel like he doesn't need that pulse. He does have his fingers on the pulse, but I just kind of feel like this is a much more mature team where they are. And then I'll tell you the line, Eric, that Malone used today when he was asked about the team and like how they're feeling. And he's like, we're just very eager for this series.
Yeah.
Like we're eager for it. I just think this is a mature team, but I also, man, this is why I wanted to start this as sort of a hype cast. 2 years in the making, the series right here.
Right.
Yes. And I think the team, are they nervous for it? I think they're excited for it.
Yeah, I mean, from what I'm hearing, it sounds like Malone is tapped into his team and that he's not trying to coach them. He's just trying to allow the team to sort of be themselves, not like bring any sort of like weird, angry aggression into the room.
Totally.
And just sort of like allow them to, to sort of appreciate what they've accomplished and sort of like look forward with excitement, like not nervousness or trepidation. I mean, I feel the same way, man.
But
like,
equally, hold up. But what I'm getting at is equally as important as he doesn't need those other things. He's like, our team's already there. So
exactly. He's not coaching. He's just like allowing, like managing, I suppose would be a better way to put it. Like just sort of just allowing it to happen.
The team will downplay this stuff, but I do. They know who the Suns are. They know what happened those years. They know what the narrative is, especially Jamal Murray. And I think you don't want to lose sight of, like, it's still just a series and you got to go execute. So you don't want to get too. But I think there is, so to speak, a picture of the Suns logo on a dartboard, man. I think they've been waiting for a long time for a chance to do this at full strength. I love it, man.
Yeah.
I can't wait.
Yeah, I definitely. I'm just telling you, man. It really is funny because anytime this is like a vacation that's like 6 months out. I never plan a vacation that long, but if they have a vacation that's like 9 months out, it's just like it's never going to get here. And then sometimes by the time it does get there, you can walk on set. Yeah, oh hell yeah, we got our nice delicious injection of energy drinks here. Heck yeah.
Oh, my heart's going to be
we're going to be beating
humming.
Through our chests. I can't wait.
I'm good.
Thank you,
good.
Marissa.
You don't want a Red Bull with the fellas?
No.
But like I said, it's come so slowly. It's been so far away this whole time that now that it's here for me personally, I almost was taken off guard. But that's what yesterday was. Yesterday for me, as I start to get into some of the numbers and into some of the tape, I just go like, man, here it is. This is the thing we were waiting for. And for me, I'm sure I will get nervous later on in the series. At this very moment, I'm not. At this very moment, I am ready just because I think the Nuggets are ready for it.
So many of my nerves about this team were calmed and quieted after game one of the Timberwolves series.
Yeah.
Like, that answered so many questions that me and I think a lot of people who watched this team had leading up to the playoffs. What happened the last month of the season? Was it concerning? No, it turns out they just didn't try. And just like that game one, the focus and the defense in round one, like that was a big takeaway from just that series. the Nuggets played a good defensive series. Now, they should have, because Minnesota's not a great offensive team. They're clunky. They were bringing Towns back into everything. But they did play good defense that series, and they locked in. And just seeing that in game one, like, I wasn't nervous after that at any point.
I haven't been nervous since the trade, and that's not that they can't lose. You know, of course they can lose this series. This is daunting, but we talk about how this Nuggets team is different. I think there are previous iterations that I believed in where you're thinking of their A+ basketball if things break their way. I feel differently about this group. This is a group that is good enough to go through the best teams. And I like that there's a team like Phoenix in their way now. You know, go beat Booker, go beat KD, go beat a series with a lot of emotional stakes, go win it. Because this team is just flat out good enough. I don't know if they will or not, but I know they're good enough.
I think the Nuggets' best win of the playoffs is against the Clippers. Kawhi Leonard and Paul George playing, coming back, from where they were. But also, look, man, Kawhi Leonard has been incredible in the playoffs. He was not injured. He wasn't shorthanded. He just got outplayed by Jokic and Murray in that series. And that's a big-time win. I think this would surpass it. I think and I'm not even sure this is a better team than that Clippers, to be honest with you. But Kevin Durant's a bigger name. And Devin Booker, with the rise he has had over the last couple of years, is a big name as well, on par with the Paul George. That, to me, if you can... And then, obviously, Chris Paul, the Hall of Famer. So, to me, this one is it's a line of demarcation. I saw Andy Liu, who's one of my favorite tweeters. He does, he's a Warriors. So he's kind of like the D-line of the Warriors, And he tweeted out...
I don't know if that's a compliment or an insult.
I just mean like he's funny, trash talker or whatever.
Okay. Compliment.
But and also supremely confident in the Warriors at all times, and he's always right. It's actually hilarious. But he had a thing out the other day, and at first I kind of was but then I was immediately, he's right. He said, if Yoke wants to be taken seriously, not to reduce this to one person, I would more at large say if the Nuggets want to be taken seriously, they have to win the series. Not because they're favored, they're actually underdogs, not because of any of that, but at some point, you have to prove that you are better than the big names, and the big names are on the other side of this.
100%. And that's my biggest thought coming into the series. This is the series the Nuggets have to win. They just have to win this series, based on everything this team has been through, getting the number 1 seed, winning the first round in 5 games, how Jamal Murray looked in the first round, how Nikola Jokic has played this season. This is just a series they have to win. We talk about expectations. We've talked about expectations the whole season with this team. If they beat the Suns, great, continue on. If they lose to the Suns, I think that would be falling short of expectations. Now I feel like we have the context to make that assessment. But the Suns aren't some juggernaut. They're really good. They're incredibly talented. They got some straight bucket getters on this team, some real hoopers. But they have their flaws, and they have a lot of flaws that I think the Nuggets can expose. But yes, for the Nuggets, for Jokic, his legacy, and just his standing in the league right now, this is a series the Nuggets have to win. I believe that 100%.
There is something too. So this team's only lost 1 game with Kevin Durant. It was game 1 of that series, right? Then they rally off 4 in a row. I do think there's something too. I've always thought that the Suns team was a bit of a front-running team, meaning if you let them get momentum going. Malone actually had this comment today about if you make it easy on them on offense, they find a rhythm and then you can't knock them out of that rhythm. So you have to constantly be trying to disrupt their flow on offense. That's one of the keys to this series, and I agree with him. But I even think in a series, man, they get up in a series 2-1, it's going to be so much harder to win that game. If you get up 2-0 on them, I just think this team has never been in that position. The previous iteration of it, I was thinking about this the other day. They never trailed in a series until game 5 of the finals. Because they led, I think they were actually down 2-1 against the Lakers or something, but LeBron got hurt. We don't know how they would have responded to that. AD gets hurt, he's out of the series, whatever. It becomes kind of a cakewalk. But they've never trailed. They trailed in the finals, and then they didn't trail until game 7 when it was tied. They didn't trail in the series, but they got blown out. So I do think there's something to put this team on their heels. Just see how they respond. It's not that they don't have it in them. It's that collectively as a group, they've never had to see what they're about with their back against the wall.
Right. Who are you when you tighten up? Do you tighten up? And those are lessons that the Nuggets have spent a long time learning.
Yeah, that's exactly. It takes a long time to learn those lessons for most teams.
It's also why I think this is maybe the number 1 series where I'm looking at home court advantage, and so thrilled the Nuggets have it. Getting out to a hot start, I mean, yeah, you do just natural rhythm to a series. You want to protect your home court, but if you go up 2-0, which you can do in your home building,
They just did it against Minnesota.
Right. So how does Phoenix respond there? And those are the little factors that I actually think are in Denver's way, at least on paper, heading into this series. We'll see how it manifests. Yeah. But I think this stuff that we're touching on is like the foundation of the argument for picking Denver in this series.
Yeah. Let's take a break. I want to continue this conversation about the Suns, but we're going to get into a lot of the specifics, the statistics and different things we've seen on the tape here later on in the show. But I do want to talk a little bit more broadly about just the character of the team as best as we can tell from the limited time we've seen it. But first.
Fourth show of the week, I think. Fourth show?
Third show.
Third show? Okay.
Do it live.
Guys, got a new sponsor. I haven't even seen these guys on the sheet before.
Oh.
Golf Snake.
On the
Golf Snake. Finding tee times in Denver is impossible.
This is the greatest idea for an app, by the way.
It's impossible to find tee times in Denver. But Golf Snake is your solution. You guys know, like calling dozens of courses and going to dozens of booking sites is so annoying.
Honestly, this is the golf experience for me. I want to fly into tee time. You look up Riverdale. Oh, it's full today. Look up City Park. I can't get in there for a month. Right. Look up Common Grounds, this or that. And then you just keep going one by one to find them. Until now.
Golf Snake is the app where you can go to find every available tee time in Denver. It was built by a Denver native who, like Adam, was annoyed that it has become such a pain in the ass to find tee times. Go to golfsnake.com, or get Golf Snake in the App Store. It's an app as well. Access every single tee time in Denver in one click, including those coveted weekend morning tee times. Golf Snake, every course in Denver, easy, fast, and free.
And here's how you do. You just put like, okay, I want to play golf today at 4 p.m. What tee times are available? And then it'll pop up. Here are all the tee times.
Does it make that noise too?
It's got that noise and everything.
What noises do snakes make? Are they hisser? Do they?
That's funny you asked that. There's a lot of different noises.
Oh, here we go. All right.
We'll talk about it off the air.
Are we talking about the Arizona chirping snake?
Yeah,
but
check out Golf Snake, guys. It's a revolutionary app, first of its kind. It's going to solve all your problems. It's going to cure all your headaches finding tee times in Denver. Golfsnake.com, or download the app in the App Store. Also, if you want to watch the Nuggets and Avs, 140 plus live channels of sports shows, movies, and news as well. Fubo TV, you can stream it live from any device. You can start watching immediately. Scan that QR code, sign up, or go to FuboTV.com/DNVR. Sign up. Boom. You're watching Fubo TV right away. They've got 1,000 hours of cloud DVR included at no extra charge, no contracts, no cables, no hassle with Fubo TV. Again, you can stream it from any device. Of course, with the NBA playoffs here, NHL playoffs, check out Fubo TV. Watch the Nuggets and Avs playoff run on ABC with Fubo TV. Go to FuboTV.com/DNVR, FuboTV.com/DNVR to sign up for 15% off your first month of Fubo Pro. So all those great qualities of Fubo that I just rattled off.
It's a million sports channels.
You get even more with Fubo Pro.
Yep.
So FuboTV.com/DNVR, 15% off your first month of Fubo Pro.
So back here in segment 2, and we're talking about the Suns and sort of the makeup of them as an entity. And I do think the thing about them, like people talk about, they're a little thin and this or that. I really think it is by the end of the playoffs, especially I'd say by the conference finals, the 4 teams remaining know themselves so well. I don't think the Phoenix Suns know themselves. And this is why I say not only have they only lost one game since KD, including the playoffs, since KD arrived there, how many times have they trailed? How many times have they looked inept? How many times have they been on their heels? And earlier in the year, there was a lot of bickering on that team. I thought Chris Paul was out of there for a while there. I thought it got so bad. There were reports about him not being in the locker room, leaving early, just this or that. I want to know, can the Nuggets put them in that position where they have to, in short order, discover who they are in pressure moments? And I actually think this is a real tangible layer to the series.
I mean, it's true. They were down in every one of the games against the Clippers. They've fought back in all of them. But you're talking about a Clippers team that was super duper diminished and didn't, when they got out to the lead, didn't necessarily have the tools to continue
Right.
laying it on them. You know, like then when the starters came back in, it was like, oh my God, like normal Powell is our number one guy all of a sudden. But yeah, I mean, it's true. Like there is something to be said about having knowledge of what the guy next to you is going to do when times get tough, when times get stressful. Like people do weird things. J.R. Smith doesn't realize that it's a like things get bizarre. You don't really know what to expect from the guy next to you until it happens. And so the Nuggets have been through that. They have seen that. They do know what when it comes down to it, they do know who's going to take the shot. Like I don't know if they know who's going to take the shot.
But I think even more than that, Eric, think about this. The Nuggets have closed big games with Michael Porter on the bench.
Yep.
They've closed big games with KCP on the bench. And they've gone to lineups that don't feature Aaron Gordon in key moments. That could be Chris Paul this series. He's a great player. It's possible that the better option is, nope, Booker and KD have this. Chris Paul, you go to the bench. We're just going to throw our defensive duds out there to see it happen. If that's never happened to you and it goes to the playoffs, that's a wild thing. And I just think that in this series in particular, as I start to go through it, there's a lot of, I don't know, maybe it shouldn't be KD in this moment, or it shouldn't be Chris Paul. It shouldn't be whatever. And I'm just kind of curious to see, again, Denver needs to put them in position where they have to face those questions.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, we'll see. But I said this at the beginning of the playoffs. The Nuggets have chemistry, camaraderie. They know how to play one another. They've been through the battles and wars together. They have a culture. That is something. Like, there's no way to quantify that, but that is something the Nuggets have that not a lot of other teams in the NBA have. And that's something they have in their back pocket. Phoenix definitely does not have that. And when you said, your point a couple minutes ago about, how are the Suns going to react, going from playing the Clippers to the Nuggets is a big step up, and I just immediately thought about the offense. Like, guarding the Clippers and guarding the Nuggets, it's like you're almost playing two entirely different forms of defense. You have to think about so many different things. You have to think about Nikola Jokic and all this off-ball movement and this read and react stuff and split cuts and off-ball. It's totally different from what the Clippers do. And that bickering that you were talking about, I wonder if we're going to see a lot of that this series when the Nuggets are just scoring at will and the Suns have no idea how to stop it.
Because there's a difference between if you're guarding the Clippers and normal Powell hits a step back jumper, it's really nobody's fault. Like, hey, play better defense, get
or
into
also
it more.
make him do that again.
Make him do that again, whatever it is. But with the Nuggets, it's a lot more of, hey, the ball swung and you mixed up the coverage. Like, you're supposed to run out at him and you didn't. That's where you start to bicker. Like, hey, man, you're leaving me high and dry on pick and rolls. You need to rotate.
That's
this
where
guy.
Chris Paul and DeAndre
I can't wait.
yelling in each other's ears
Chris
on the
is
way
yelling?
back to the huddle. Actually, it's just Chris Paul yelling in DeAndre.
Well,
He's
tuck
just
in
looking
your
over.
jersey.
It's a one-way conversation.
Let's
Tuck in your jersey. That's a penalty.
Well, let's get into this, though, a little bit. So some of the specifics. Number one, neither team is great defensively. Denver had a very good first round defensively, but let's be honest, they're going up against a subpar offense.
Yes.
The Suns pretty confidently have not proven to be a good defensive team. They had some metrics that showed that in the 8 games that they played together in the regular season, half of those against Denver when Denver didn't play Jokic or Murray. But, in the playoffs, they were the 11th best. Out of 16 teams, they had the 11th best defense against a Clippers team that was missing their 2 best offensive players. They are not a good...
runs like the most basic system ever.
They are not a good defensive team. And then when you start to get into how are they going to guard Denver, I don't think they're equipped to guard Denver.
I agree.
Now, you could say the same about Denver. Pick and roll, they're gonna have a hard time there. But I look at that and I just go, Denver got into an offensive shootout with Damian Lillard averaging 50 points a game and making threes from the logo, and they still outgunned him with Austin Rivers and Facu Campazzo. In a gunfight, I just like Denver all the time. Like, I like a gunfight way more than I like a defensive battle for Denver. And as good as KD and Booker are, part of me looks at this and goes, if they can't figure out a stop for Denver, I feel way better about that than the opposite direction.
I think it's totally true. And I want to be careful how I say this because the Suns came up short, the well-oiled machine Suns, and they traded for a star, and I think they made the right call. I don't know if that group was going back to the finals. From a Denver perspective, and I don't know if this is true, but part of me looks at the trade and says, okay, before the trade, Denver could not guard the Suns, and the Suns could guard Denver.
Correct.
I don't know if the Suns can guard Denver now.
And I don't know that they can score at a higher rate than what they used to do back in the day. Like,
or at least it's like you said, a shootout with home court advantage. It's just comfortable. It doesn't.
Right.
Can Denver do what they do best? And I don't. So it just feels like
they can get a bucket though.
Well, but here's the part where it gets really interesting, guys. How they score is so different. Denver points in the paint in the playoffs were third. In the regular season, they were fourth. They own the paint. I think it could have been higher. If you just go with like Jokic on the court, they dominate points in the paint. That is their bread and butter.
Yep.
The 3-point, they were the number 1 3-point shooting team this year for most of the season. They can really, they have a lot of guys that it's not about the one guy get hot or their 2 guys get hot. They have a lot of guys who can make threes, and they generate great looks because of that Jokic offense. That's the efficiency part of this.
Yep.
The Suns are a mid-range team, and they are the best mid-range team maybe in the history of basketball. But they don't necessarily get to the paint a whole lot, and they don't generate a lot of threes. They haven't been a good fast-breaking team. They were in this last round. I don't know if that's going to continue. We'll find out. But I do think there is just something, too, like when Malone today talked about there's easy buckets are at such a premium in the playoffs, and we have to like get more easy buckets than them. I think that is a little bit built into the fabric of both teams, that Denver should be able to generate the easier shots, even if they're good at making the tough ones.
I mean, for me, I look at what Nikola Jokic was able to do with the Denver Nuggets against the Clippers when they were at full strength and we were playing them in meaningful games down the stretch. Kawhi Leonard scored every time down. Yep. And Jokic just matched him and somehow went above. It was like, okay, cool. Like you can score every time down. So can we. That's fine. Like that is kind of the way that I imagine this is going to go. Like I can't imagine how the Phoenix Suns are going to be able to guard both Jokic and Aaron Gordon in the paint. I think that Ayton will provide some resistance to Jokic. He'll probably try and keep him out of the paint a little bit. He'll have him, taking jump shots, which typically like that's no problem for Jokic. But then you're talking about who's going to contain the strength of Aaron Gordon cutting to the rim. Who's going to keep him off the glass? Like I don't see it. I can't. Is Josh Okogie, like Kevin Durant, like Torrey Craig, like I don't see it, man.
Yeah, I think what it could come down to when you're talking about the two offenses is that the well can run dry from the mid-range, and like it when it happens, but the Nuggets offensive well never runs dry because they can just play in so many different ways. Jokic can dominate on the block. They can kill you from 3-point range. They can go the Jokic Murray 2-man game. So just the versatility of the Nuggets offense is ultimately why I think they will win the series.
But I think you wrote this in the roundtable. I think Porter had a good round one. Needs to be better, catch and shoot. And KCP too, who I think only shot like 36% from 3 in round one. Like those guys will find open shots, I think, and they got to hit them. Like that's when the well runs dry, in my opinion. Mm-hmm. When like maybe the ball's sticking in Jamal's hands, or Yoke feel like he has to go and score 40 because Mike and KCP are just not hitting their shots anymore. And those guys in those roles for Phoenix, like one of them is Torrey Craig. So just Porter and KCP, I think, have to be the difference in terms of those easy looks that come naturally in their offense. You got to knock them down.
But here's where I think these things play together, and why I think the Suns are a little bit more designed to, if you're hitting your mid-range or not, what is the next option? What is it? Well, whereas for Denver, I think Jokic, you mentioned jump shots. I think he'll take some jumpers against Ayton. But if you can spread them out the way I anticipate they can, Ayton guards Jokic when you get to key in on him. Exactly. I mean, we just saw this against them in the last series. Like, is Denver a good pick-and-roll defense? I don't know, but they almost always had one guy they didn't have to guard, and that makes it easier. This is going to be a series where I think the Suns have to guard everyone. They have to guard Aaron Gordon inside because there's no Rudy Gobert. There's none of that stuff. So to your point, I think Jokic can and will, and it will be an emphasis early on to put pressure on the rim.
Yes.
Will he take jumpers? Sure. But take it at Ayton. See if he can guard you. See if he can block your shot 2 or 3 times in the first half, because I don't think he can. Right. I think there's a better chance he gets in foul trouble, and an even better chance that you just score on him despite the fouls or whatever. And once you do that, the adjustment then becomes, okay, we have to overload on the paint. And to your point, that's where the math game plays out. Whereas, again, with the Suns, they do have the ability to post up an 8, and they do have ability to take more threes or drive. But it's not as natural as it is for Denver, where it's like if you're going to one-on-one inside, Jokic eats. If you're going to start to double, 3-point game, and the math starts to work out. So to me, I love this battle. And then just to put a fine point on it, so Nuggets 3rd in the playoffs so far in points in the paint. Suns 11th in giving up points in the paint. They are vulnerable at that exact spot to a Clippers
Kevin
team.
Durant at power forward.
To a Clippers team that like has Zubats there. Yes, they have Russell Westbrook drives, but I just think that's a real battleground that Denver should have an advantage on. If we want to talk about another one going the other direction, free throw attempt rate. Again, we don't have a huge sample size with Kevin Durant there. In the regular season, they were 5th post All-Star they were 21st at drawing fouls. Their foul rate, free throw attempt rate.
That's surprising.
21st. In the playoffs, they were 1st.
See, this is maybe my biggest concern of the series. It's foul trouble for Denver.
Yeah.
And it's first quarter, Kevin Durant gets Aaron Gordon in foul trouble, 2 straight possessions,
Right.
draws 2 fouls. He gets Michael Porter on a switch, 2 possessions in a row, gets to the line both times. Like, that is my biggest fear, especially based on how these playoffs have been officiated.
Yeah.
Some games have just been called so tight.
Yeah.
Foul trouble, I'm definitely concerned about. And just like you look at the roster, Kevin Durant, Devin Booker, Chris Paul, these are guys who are going to get calls in the playoffs. They just are. So, I mean, that's definitely a huge concern.
There's a question here. How much settling will Phoenix do? They're so good at mid-range, long mid-rangers, difficult jump shots. They can beat you that way. But because of what you guys are saying, I almost feel like you live with a lot of those if you're Denver. Because I really hope it doesn't occur to Booker that he can just take it to the rim probably whenever he wants in this series. Because I think he can. And so I do hope that they settle for some jumpers.
You just make it tough. Hope they settle.
And possibly this is where their high minute total kicks in more than anything else. It's exhausting to go to the rim over and over again. They've already had to grind through as much as you do a 5-game series. Maybe that's the longer this series goes, you see them settle for more jumpers. We'll find out.
The turnover rate is interesting here because they ranked 1-2 in the first round and not turning it over. These are two teams that are, when they need to be disciplined, can. Chris Paul's obviously an incredible floor general. And so I don't know that this is a series that Denver's going to get a lot of like fast breaks. And I'm not even sure that should be a part of the equation. But if you look at opponent turnover percentage, they're both bad at this as well. So I think both teams are good at not turning it over and bad at forcing turnovers, to where this is a game that probably, when Malone talks about easy points, I think this is two teams that are good at scoring in the half court and good at making tough shots, but neither team is good at getting easy ones in that way. And that'll become a part of the story as well.
Yeah, we'll see. I mean, I'm really interested to see how much Denver's going to be able to take it out of the net and then just do quick Jokic toss downs, like push the pace. Because you're right, there's not a lot of turnovers, not a lot of live ball turnovers that happen. I mean,
so you need to run them in other ways.
I think that there are ways to make it happen, to force the issue. We haven't been seeing it with Jamal Murray bringing up the ball really slow in a labored way with Nickeil Alexander-Walker on him. I don't anticipate Chris Paul giving the same sort of on-ball pressure to Jamal Murray. It would wear him out more than it would benefit the Nuggets. I mean, so I think that there is an opportunity to just get a little bit more speed, even in their just normal half-court sets. But we'll see. I mean, they would be foolish to not try to take advantage and not try to make the altitude a factor.
For sure.
I just don't think it's going to come in turnovers. But
I mean, I think that there are other ways to do it. That's what I mean. Like
the Suns, they want to play slow.
They want
to walk it up and get into their half court stuff.
So do the Nuggets, by the way. They both are a very slow-paced team, which makes you wonder. By the way, there's 4 days off in the middle of this series too. I do wonder if fatigue just won't be a factor. I mean, part of me thinks wear down Chris Paul, and then they'll think wear down Jamal Murray. You play 2 games, and then you take 3 days off before game 3. Both teams might just be rested for this one.
This is where I wonder about Bruce Brown having a big impact in this series in stagger minutes. I'm not super familiar with Phoenix's rotation right now, but
it's not deep.
They're on the floor. Bruce Brown, I think, is maybe the most push the pace guy on the team. Obviously he's insatiable defensively, just an appetite you can't satisfy, but offensively too, he wants to grab rebounds and run. Even in the half court, he just wants to run. He just wants to take you to the rim. Yeah. He can be exhausting, and I wonder if him coming off the bench, staggering, playing with the starters, if he's a guy that can really make Chris, Devin, whoever it is that's still out there, just want to quit on the end of the first quarter.
Well, The turnover part of this will be really interesting. The pace part of this will be really interesting. But the stats we've gone over, we have some more stats going in the next segment. But the stats we've gone over, one thing that I think is can be a huge advantage Denver's way, they would be crushed by foul trouble, especially in their front court. If Denver is able to put them on their heels, but also just putting pressure on the paint, that's how you start to draw fouls. And I'm just curious, that to me, this series will remind me of the Portland one where Jokic was clearly trying to foul Nurkic out all game, just going at him at the expense of inefficiency, just going at him. I kind of think that's a bit of the recipe in this one. Wear Ayton out at altitude, make him foul you, and then make him bring in 6'8" Bismack Biyombo.
I was going to say, you don't have a lot of confidence in Bismack Biyombo?
I don't have a lot of confidence in him guarding Jokic at all.
What about Jock Landau?
That's even funnier. So to me, it's a huge. They are so vulnerable at that one position that if Denver can get to that spot, I think they are going to not just win, but destroy the remaining minutes.
The help defender is also Kevin Durant.
Right.
Either you don't help or he has to work too. Know, or that's where Aaron Gordon starts to come in particular handy for this team.
On that point, in segment 3, we've given a couple stats. I have the one character trait of the Suns that I think is most ripe for being exploited. And to my surprise, Michael Malone agreed today in practice.
That is surprising.
Breckenridge Brewery is the official beer of DNVR. If you don't know where to get Breck Brew, check out the Breck Brew beer locator. It's on their website. Type in your zip code. It will tell you where to get Breck Brew no matter where you are. Try out some of our favorites, the Mile High City Golden Ale, the Avalanche Amber Ale. Look, if you're watching a Nuggets game, you want the Golden Ale. If you're watching a Navs game, you want the Amber Ale, the Vanilla Porter Jr. That should be great for this series.
I'll order a Vanilla Porter Jr. game 1.
There you go. Good omen right there. Good Company Hard Seltzer as well. For all the Breck Brew favorites, check out the Breck Brew beer locator. Again, if you're local here in Colorado, if you're in Denver, come down to the DNVR bar. We've got tons of Breck Brew on tap, of course. But if you're not, check out the beer locator. Type in your zip code. That will tell you where to get Breckenridge Brewery closest to you. Breck Brew is the official beer of DNVR. Also, shout out to our friends at IV Nutrition of Wash Park. Check out their location at Wash Park, corner Alameda and Downing, right by the
Starbucks.
There you go. Anyone who mentions DNVR when they come in gets 50% off their first IV nutritional drip. Give them a call, 720-259-4404 for more information. Just mention DNVR at their Wash Park location. You have to go to that Wash Park location. Corner Alameda and Downing. Mention DNVR. Get 50% off your first IV nutritional drip. They do a lot of other stuff as well. Wellness, blood testing, and consultations. Intermuscular injections with vitamin formulas. They've got an express lunch break drip. They got hydration drips. Tons of stuff. They also are doing a... there it is.
They have the big promo. Because the Nuggets won Game 5, they had this great one. You get a free add-on injection, so like a B12 injection with it.
Yeah.
So you go there. Not only do you get 50% off,
know that.
you get the injection and a free t-shirt.
Let's go.
IV Nutrition
So
t-shirt.
if you were thinking about it, you've been hearing this ad for like a month now. You've been hearing it and you've been on the fence. Literally the best time to go.
Yeah.
Mention DNVR. But remember, it has to be Wash Park
sure.
location, Alameda and Downing.
You could also, they're at the bar hanging out, watching the playoffs.
They're homies, man.
Just
They're
Nuggets
Nuggets
fans.
Just ask them if they can give you an injection right there at the
Yeah, they won't, but you can ask.
Just roll up your sleeve. See what happens.
All right. So the stat to me that is so interesting is that they suck.
End sentence.
Wait, finish. Hang on.
Clip it. Put it out on Twitter.
They suck
Quote graphic.
at defensive rebounding.
Okay.
There are offensive rebounds and second chance points to be had in this series. Now, here's the thing. They weren't a good fast break team. You know, offensive rebound and fast break inversely correlate because oftentimes as you ramp up your aggression trying to hit the boards, you're more vulnerable to getting beat in transition. They suck at this, and they are dangerous in transition. But to me, this is the ultimate playoff battle. Which team blinks first? If you try to go after the boards, you make an emphasis at going at the offensive boards, and you don't win that battle, you're probably giving up fast breaks, and you blink first. But if you go and you get all these easy points, as Michael Malone said, these are the points that are on the table, easy points. If you go there and punish their tiny little lineup, if you go out there and own the boards, They blink to where
That
they're
felt
not even
offensive to
trying
me.
to get out on the break because they're like, you got to send 5 guys to crash the defensive glass because we can't keep Yoke and Porter and Gordon off the glass. We have to compromise. That's how you make them adjust first. To me, this is the big one. Not only can Jokic eat up Ayton on the post, I think he can eat him up on the boards if he is really locked in, and I think Denver is going to look for opportunities to put them in vulnerable rebounding positions.
For sure, man. Nikola Jokic, I think, needs to dominate this series. Like, I think he still was the Nuggets' best player in round 1, but
I agree.
Jamal Murray was, how'd you put it, more spectacular?
More spectacular.
He was the guy who, like, was the man in clutch time.
Yep.
But Nikola Jokic, I still think, was their best player. Round 2, he's got to go up a level,
Yep.
I think Nikola Jokic does. He has to dominate DeAndre Ayton on the block with his passing and distributing on the glass as well. He's got to stay out of foul trouble. He's got to clearly be the Nuggets' best player in this series, and I think he should be.
And Eric, these things play together though, because for me, when we're thinking about Ayton trying to rebound, just clean up the defensive glass. Don't give Denver an extra chance. The best way to do that, make Ayton guard Murray out on the perimeter. You get that pick and roll. Ayton's got to step up. Guess what's vulnerable? Now you're rotating over. Kogie's got to rotate and block out Jokic. No, thank you. That ain't going to happen. Kevin Durant has to box out Jokic on the short roll. Not going to happen. So to me, those things play together.
Yeah, for sure. And one of the biggest complaints I was hearing and seeing on Twitter during the last series for the Suns was just lamenting the fact that they weren't not boxing out. The game that they lost was down the stretch. Like the Clippers got like 5 rebounds in a row.
You know
and
what? Because boxing out takes effort and it takes like discipline.
Yeah,
and
yeah,
the Suns,
great
to
take.
me, they're a team who kind of just wants to like roll the ball out and go shoot a mid-range jumper on the other end of the floor.
Yeah.
It's Kevin Durant and Devin Booker's core philosophy that's what basketball is.
We are going to find out, to your point, how much like grit and like the real if there's any hardworking nature of the Suns like deep down. Like we're going to find that out.
I do want to say the framing of this entire segment is viciously heightist, and I feel offended, even though it's not directed at me.
I bet you could box out though.
Oh, dude, I'm going to try hard. I will say this, though. Is it Devin Booker guarding Michael Porter Jr.?
Might be. I mean, I think they're going to try to.
Michael Rebounder Jr., man. I think he's got to crash the glass, especially the offensive glass.
He did in the first round.
Booker wants to get out and run. Porter looked better as a rebounder in round 1 than he has since the last surgery. You're bigger than Porter. I think Booker's probably going to tend towards getting out and running for a potential fast break. I think Porter has to be a guy that's crashing the glass like a madman.
Yeah.
And if he is, I think like the catch and shoot stuff has to be there, but you view that as a given. Porter said he identified rebounding as a swing factor for him in round 1. That's where he could make a difference.
And he did a good job.
And he did a great job. I think it's
9 rebounds a game, I think, something like that.
I think it's even more so against Phoenix. I think he can be the one that helps break their back with that specific effort.
So if I were to
Poor
rank
choice
these,
of words.
if I were to rank,
Yeah.
What did he say?
I said break their back.
Oh,
for
geez.
Michael Porter
Just
Jr.
a horrendous choice of words. Yeah. That's my bad.
I think that if I were to rank, so rebounding to me is like the biggest battleground of this series, and if I were to rank the most responsible parties, Jokic number 1. I just think like he can rebound at a good level, but you gotta really punish them on that end. So Jokic number 1, and I think Michael Porter is number 2. Aaron Gordon number 3.
Yep.
I think Aaron Gordon is more occupying the guy who is supposed to be the secondary rebounder.
Yeah.
But it's to your point, it was Russell Westbrook crashing the boards. It was guys from outside crashing the boards. And so that's why, to me, Michael Porter hitting the boards, he's a great rebounder. He has a nose for it. He's so important in that exact thing.
Yeah, man. Like just going back to the idea of Jokic being the most dominant player in this series, like the last round presented Jokic with the most unique challenge that the NBA has to offer him. Like nobody else has a lineup with the two 7-foot guys that sort of interchangeably come in, can completely clog the paint, can really make the inside just like a very hostile place to go. The Suns don't have anything remotely close to that. It's just going to be a much different area for Jokic to operate in. He's going to have so much more freedom. He's going to be able to, bring DeAndre Ayton out and just sort of toy with and then leave the paint open. in the way that we weren't able to in the last round because, Cat would come out if Jokic came out, and then Gobert would still be down there preventing Aaron Gordon from doing anything. I just think that the complexion of this series is going to be so dynamically different when it comes to Nikola Jokic and specifically like that paint area. And then
this series, there's going to be so much more flow and openness.
And then when the heavy pressure comes on the paint, then lo and behold, Michael Porter Jr. gets wide open 3-pointers. Jamal Murray gets wide open looks. Like, this is how the construction of this team that we've been looking at and pining for to see in a playoff setting since we made the Aaron Gordon trade. Like, we have all of the requisite pieces to attack you in any way that their defense presents as a weakness. And there are things that are just obviously weaknesses that that they're going to be able to attack early on. But the thing is like when they make adjustments, the Nuggets should be able to attack that as well.
Exactly.
It really just comes down to, I just think the Nuggets can score easier than the Phoenix Suns will be able to score. And the Phoenix Suns can score pretty goddamn easily.
And the most frustrating things on the basketball court, turnovers and offensive rebounds. If you have a guy that's just turning it over and over again, you get so frustrated with that guy, right? It's like, come on, man. Like, we're kind of going to...
Chris Paul just grifting fouls.
Well, grifting fouls, actually, you're right. It's the most. You're right. Grifting fouls might be the number one. But when your team gives up offensive rebounds, that's one of the most frustrating things that can happen to a team. The guy that's not responsible for it is yelling at the guy who is. Like, come on, man. Box out. Rotate. And I just think that's another way you can put this team into a little bit of disorder. And let's look. Who's the whipping boy on that team?
DeAndre Ayton.
Who do you think is going to be blamed, right or wrong, if the Nuggets are just killing the offensive glass?
DeAndre. Better not be Torrey Craig. Don't come for my guy, Torrey Craig.
When Chris is just screaming at DeAndre and DeAndre is looking over and Jokic is like, good job, man. He's going to be like...
Brother, I have 50.
I know. I just think he's going to start to be like, I want to play for that fella.
Is anybody who's going to the game and is sitting in close proximity to the Suns bench, I would just encourage you to scream about... to Ayton. Get into his head. Just say, hey, why do the Nuggets players respect you more than your own teammates? Maybe bring up the fact that Chris Paul became a players union rep to get himself a bigger contract, but then diminished DeAndre Ayton's contract. Maybe you bring up the fact that they didn't sign him until they had to match the salary, and then it was a lower discounted
and
price.
gosh, doesn't Chris look a little slower these days anyway?
Doesn't he look a little slower?
Like a little older.
They always blame Ayton for all of their problems.
Look how great backup centers have done. Wait. Sorry. Actually, wait.
Don't use that one.
Also, where is Chris? Is he shooting another insurance commercial?
Yeah, actually, ask him this one. Why is DeAndre Jordan invited to be on Chris Paul's commercials and make all that State Farm money, but DeAndre Ayton is never in a commercial with him? Isn't that a weird thing? Wouldn't you just hook your homies up?
Why?
Wouldn't you just be like, hey, we need a really tall, funny guy. Oh, we have Ayton over here. He's my teammate. Like, no, I'll go to my old teammate. I'll get him paid. Chris Paul has Boban in his commercials. He's not even his teammate.
For the record, Adam has suggested buying a seat behind the Suns bench and talking shit to DeAndre Ayton like 20 times throughout the season.
I'm just saying, of all the guys who are most susceptible to like real honest trash
you really
talk,
want this to happen?
It's not like you suck. I want somebody to be like, why has Chris Paul never invited you?
Look at that chat.
What does it say?
These are all very long things to yell.
I'm just saying, you get there a little early.
Why hasn't Chris Paul invited you into a State Farm commercial when he invited DeAndre Jordan to one?
It's a perfect thing to yell. Why, why did they not offer you a contract until they had no one else?
During a timeout before the music comes on.
I'm just saying, man. When I was sitting behind the bench, I made a comment about how nobody moves to Philly. People move away from Philly, but nobody moves to it. And there was a coach on the bench that gave me the biggest glare.
Really?
The biggest, he was so pissed about that comment.
He was like, I know what you mean, bro.
Yeah, it was a very...
It's like, what about Bo Cruz?
Great point, actually.
It's a great point. Nobody does move to Philly. They just move out of Philly.
You're actually correct.
All right, let's take a quick break. On the other side, we're going to end this talking about Giannis. Talking about Giannis. We have to do it.
Doctor.
Brings me no joy. Actually, it brings me a little joy.
It brings me a little joy. After this season, listen.
Yeah.
The American Raptors and Infinity Park Professional Rugby has returned to Rugby Town, USA. As your hometown American Raptors, they're playing right now at Infinity Park. If you want to get more involved, if you want to learn more about rugby, check out the DNVR Rugby Podcast hosted by Colton Strickler. He does a great job of keeping you locked in on the rugby scene here in Colorado and throughout the country. Follow our rugby account on Twitter at DNVR_rugby. That's the best way to keep up with all the rugby news. Tickets for the American Raptors, just $10, and children 12 and under are free. If you can't make it, watch all of the American Raptors matches live on ESPN+. See you in Rugby Town, USA. Also at Shady Rays, they got an awesome deal going on exclusively for DNVR listeners. Shady Rays is giving out their best deal of the season. Go to shadyrays.com, use the code DNVR. Get 50% off 2+ pairs of polarized sunglasses. Try for yourself. The shades rated 5 stars by over 250,000 people. Shady Rays, they've got a ton of different types of sunglasses. You go onto their website, they got so many different options to choose from. They look great. They're more affordable and just as good as some of those big name brands that you've probably been spending a lot of money on over the years. Also with Shady Rays, they're backed by the lost and broken replacement guarantee that they have. They've got awesome protection on all of their eyewear. If you lose or break your pair even on day one, they will send you a brand new pair, no questions asked. So shadyrays.com, use the code DNVR, 50% off 2+ pairs of polarized sunglasses.
Let's go.
Alrighty.
Also, quickly, Merchant wanted me to mention that the playoff shirts are in and they are shipping.
Let's go.
They are in and they are shipping. Also, the stickers. They are in.
Love it.
And they are shipping. They will be available at the bar.
Saturday, show up to the bar in your playoff shirt.
Yeah,
Like
or-
that's what you need to wear.
Yeah. Or come to the bar and get your playoff shirt.
There you
Or
go.
come and get it. I'm telling you guys, Saturday for obviously go to the game if you get tickets or whatever. Use Game Time app. But if you're not, come to the bar. I'm telling you, the bar has been so freaking fun when the Nuggets win in the playoffs, or just when they do anything nice. Saturday night bar, it's going to be unbelievable. To end today's show, guys, we got to be a little quick on this. The Bucks. Everybody predicted. This is why I don't feel too bad about it, even though I like Giannis. Everybody on earth said the West is weak.
Yep.
The West is weak. Look at all these juggernauts in the Eastern Conference. Meanwhile, the West, what a joke the West is over here. And then everyone said, you want to know my hot take? I think the 1 seed's going down in the West, man. We're going down. The West seed, the 1 seed, man. Over there, it's just clown stuff. Well, guess what? The Bucks not only lost, they lost in 5. And
a
not
play-in
only in
team.
5, not to a Miami Heat team that, by the way, lost to the Hawks in the play-in.
Yep.
My goodness. And then, not only did they lose, they blew a 14-point fourth quarter lead with some of the ugliest, worst basketball I've ever seen in my 2 games in a row. They blew a big fourth quarter lead with some of the worst basketball. And then lastly, I love Giannis. He's one of my favorite players and one of my favorite characters. That man had a disastrous last 2 games in the clutch.
He did.
Unbelievable how bad he was there. Then after the game, he goes to the podium and he was asked what I thought was a very fair question by a great reporter in Eric Name. I think he's a very good. He asked him, is this season a failure? Now, some people might say, how do you ask a player that in the moment? Guys, this is why they get paid the big bucks. Because
That's what the money is for.
Because people like to talk about these things and know how players think. And he gave, I thought, a very good answer, like a very insightful answer about, hey, look.
Life.
Well, about life. Now, I will say this. I have to cut him some slack. Because I think the smart move, and I hate it, is for athletes never to say anything. And he could have easily gone that route. Instead, he opened up and he said something that I think had the spirit of truth to it, which was, even in life there are failures, but as long as you learn from them, they can be part of a process. But he phrased it as, it's not a failure, it's just a lesson. 1-seeded Bucks went down in 5 games. That's a failure. So I'm not going to hold it. I'm not going to hold it against him because I think the spirit of what he was trying to say is more or less insightful and interesting. But at the same time, guys, if Jokic would have lost in 5 games to the 8 seed,
Yeah, I don't even know.
Giannis does have a championship, though. He has that.
He'll never lose it.
Giannis is amazing.
He is. That's not the point. Is not that Giannis sucks.
The specific criticisms are still there.
I'm saying he gets a little more leeway in the criticism department because of the ring.
But listen, man, that quote's not that poignant, and here's why. If Giannis loses in the finals after finally getting that Bucks title, and it's a hard-fought battle, and they don't get it, I think that quote hits.
Right, it's a lesson.
And maybe he's thought about it a little more. They lost in the first round to the 8 seed in 5 fucking games.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, man. I'm sorry. You fail in life. I failed when I struck out in Little League. I get what he's saying. It's not a revelatory concept. I think it's a fair enough answer because it's hard to give an answer in the moment. But the hashtag this league response to like,
I know everybody.
That was the most insightful answer I've ever seen. I learned more from watching this video from Giannis. Dude, read a goddamn book. What are you talking about? They lost in the first round in 5 games, and he was bad.
Ithaca College's own Brendan Vogt.
That's my favorite point about all of this is not like how you feel about it. It's the people that were like, unbelievable stuff.
That's
like everybody standing up. I was like, the guy lost in 5 and
also brought up MJ. I'm pretty sure MJ would say, "Yeah, I did fail when I did."
It also melted down in the clutch, which is also a key thing.
Yeah, that's the problem. The problem with this is that first off, it's Giannis. He's probably the most universally respected guy in the league. So
masterful
when
PR.
he says things like that, it actually carries a little bit more gravitas because he's shown that he actually has a concept of how to live life successfully. But I mean, that was an abject failure. It's just right. I mean, like he was. That moment was probably the lowest moment of his career. Like, absolutely,
it probably was.
That level of failure to come on the heels of, like, for me especially. All of these like Giannis stands like really came out of the woodwork this year to slander Jokic because it was like unthinkable.
100%. This is the worst thing that happened this year. Is the Jokic-Giannis alliance amongst like pundits and fans somehow broke.
Yes,
the MVP broke it.
Yes, it was, and it was ridiculous and it was disgusting. And so to see it devolve like that, I'm like, good, man. Screw you guys. Like, I don't understand like why you were so upset at the idea that Jokic could win a 3rd MVP because Giannis could not win a 3rd MVP. But then it turns into slandering Jokic. Like, what are you talking about? And then for him to fail in such spectacular fashion in the clutch, he is so bad. Like that bagless comment about, he's like either incredible or he's like a between the 20s player.
Well, what's funny is there's all these little axioms about basketball, and one of them is like, you know, if your offense isn't there, your defense can save you. And Jokic's defense in the postseason is more damning than Giannis's offense or this or that.
Well, Giannis
is
a 10 on offense. I think we all
know that. That's how people say. It's like, well, Jokic might be a 10, but I think Giannis is also a 10 or a 9.9 or something.
As long as he's dunking the ball.
That game showed that no, it's not, and you can also lose big games in the playoffs because you don't have the offense at that same level.
I think what that quote showed that there's a big difference between how Giannis and how I'm sure many players view success and failure in the NBA and how we, as people covering the league, view success and failure.
I just don't want the pendulum to swing that far because, again, I think he had something insightful to say about, hey, failures make you better if you learn from them.
Yeah, that of course.
And I think that I want to say he kind of misspoke or just didn't have the clarity of thought. So I don't want to bang that drum too loudly about him. I still love Giannis. My thing is, there's this desire to make the game not about winning and losing in this weird way. And it's like, no, guys,
because that's
why we watch.
Yeah.
We want you to win.
Yeah, like the players don't see it that way.
And they don't see, and I don't want there's this thing for fans to rush to the defense at every corner for the athletes. That meme of jumping in front, like real, regular, acceptable criticism and then jumping in front of a professional athlete. I think there's a little bit of that going on where it's like, no, man, that was a disaster. And you have the ultimate success where you were 19 of 19 from the foul line in the clutch and all this. And then you have whatever happened in that series, which was the opposite of that. Yeah. And you're both things. And look, it's been the same for Jokic too.
Look, defense, I think, has mattered more in the playoffs historically. I think this year it flips. Yeah. And offense is what matters more.
Yeah. Anyway, it was a very interesting one. And look, I think we have 8 series and 4 of them look like they're going to go to the lower seed. And not a single one of those was the Denver Nuggets. They took care of their business, and now they have more business ahead of them here in 2 days. We're going to be back tomorrow. Another Nuggets practice.
Super chats.
What's that?
Super chats.
Oh, my God. All right, we have super chats. Let's roll through these here quick because the Buffs guys are eyeing me. KD versus Jokic, my 2 fave unicorns going head-to-head. Hype.
Unicorn? Kevin Durant?
I mean, he kind of is. This 7-foot guard. Oh, okay. Fan media lack of discussion about how PHX will guard Denver is funny. It's all just Jokic can't defend PNR. Game 1 is going to be hilarious wake-up call. I hope you're right. Well, I don't think the Nuggets can guard pick and roll, just to be clear. But I don't think they can guard Denver either. Steve says, number one thing I want to see is FU energy from the Nugs. Always coast when they are up. I want them to go up 15 and keep fighting. Don't beat them, break them. I don't expect the Nuggets. It's not in their DNA to be Dylan Brooks, thank God, and just come out and like call people out before a series and thump your chest. I will say
I
this.
know. I tried to ask Aaron Gordon about the Kevin Durant matchup today, and he was like, it's about all of us.
And he's not wrong about that. But I do hope that they are just not sharing that they're like, no, F these guys. Of course we remember it. I want to hammer these dudes and clown them just as badly. I hope that is the energy. T-Ball Beck says, lifelong Nuggets fan, went to my first Nuggets game in 1975 at Auditorium against Virginia Squires. Keep up the great work you all do. Nuggets in 6. Wow. Virginia Squires.
The Squires, they had a great squad back then, too.
Yeah, that was really good.
Top.
They really
Robert
beat you
June
from,
says, thanks
they
again
controlled
from
the
Western
paint.
New York for the watch-alongs and great
HOPENY.
content. Never met another Nuggets fan out here. So the community DNVR provides means a lot. Becoming a diehard soon. Love that, man. Robert.
Western New York.
We appreciate
Super
you,
chat
man.
Shout
from
out to
HOPENY,
you.
New
I'll
York.
let you take this one, vote. Laking ball.
All right, the finals come through Boston home court, baby. Well, they got to get past the Hawks first. The Celtics better win tonight. I don't trust my guy Jason Tatum in a game 7, possibly going 8 of 30 shooting, even at home.
You know,
But I do smell a chip. B-vote high.
you know, I always love a little bit of Celtic slander right there at the end to get us out. Big game for them
Big
tonight.
game tonight, boys.
Everybody hit that like button on the way out. We'll see you tomorrow.
Let's go.